Welcome back, everybody. So today we're going to have a side-by-side, another side-by-side between my second 2-hop series beers. The one on my left is Citra Amarillo with 2-row. The one on my right is Amarillo Citra with 2-row. They are both using SO4 yeast. I made 20 batches in the first 2-hop series with Cascade and Centennial, and I liked how that ended, so that's where I wanted to start with this. So that's where we're starting. These are small batches, 1.25 gallons going into the carboy, 2 pounds, 8 ounces of 2-row. Then we're just switching the hop. So we'll just say Citra is 0.25 ounces at 60, 0.25 ounces of Amarillo at 10, 0.25 ounces of Citra at 5. Then for the Amarillo version, you would just flip them. So where the Citra is, you would put the Amarillo, and where the Amarillo is, you would put the Citra. Both are dry hopped with 0.25 ounces of each, 3 days into fermentation. Beer 1, Beersmith has this at 87.8 IBUs. Beer number 2 is 66.4. Beersmith called for them both to be 5.3% ABV. My beer 1 is 7.77%. Beer 2 is 8.13%. So in theory, beer 2 should be drier, less sweet, because that yeast is going to eat that sugar, which is going to produce the alcohol. So if the more sugar you eat, should lead to a thinner body and drier beer, where if you leave sugar in there, it's going to be sweeter and it's going to give it some body. A good example, I believe I talk about it if you go back and watch my latest Peachtree IPA video. I think that's 2 years old, but I've talked about this before. I'm going to set these off here. Now, beer number 1 is a little older, like 15 minutes older during opening, just because I did the separate review and it has been posted. Then I did beer number 2. So for the head, just going by what we have right now, beer number 2 wins. It is using 4 carbonation tablets, as I talked about in the review for the Amarillo Citra version. I wonder if the hops have something to do with head retention also. Maybe just a little bit. Because I'm saying that is a lot of my 2-hop beers that I made in my Centennial Cascade didn't have a head, and I think some of those were 10, 11 months old and still didn't have a head, where these are 5 months old and we have a head, and they're using 4 carbonation tablets. Now these are 12-ounce bottles, so maybe the bottle has something to do with it. I would have to go back and look, or I'll have to remember that, as I do have some Centennial Cascade beers left to review more of, that I'll have to remember to see if the bottle also plays a role in that, because there's no carafoam, wheat, anything like that in these to keep head around. No oats, nothing like that. So it is 3, maybe it's the yeast. Could be the yeast too. But at least for the head, I would have to go with beer number 2. It looks better and there's more of it. For the color, beer number 1, I think it is starting. I think this is the last bottle, or at least I pulled the last bottle, because there is a lot of hop particles at the bottom. It is clearing up a little bit. It's a lighter yellow color. Lots of bubbles coming up. A lot of trubes still in suspension there. But beer number 2 looks, it's hazy IPA, New England IPA. That nice yellow, almost orange, gold, kind of golden. I got a big hop chunk in there. It's driving me crazy. New England style IPA. I think that's what SO4 should do. I'll have to test that, but it looks like if you compared these, and I didn't know what kind of yeast was used, I would say this one's using USO5 and this is using SO4. That's my assumption. Yours could be different, but something like that. But yeah, I would give it to beer number 2, definitely, for the haziness. Let's go ahead and smell. I think some more of the malts coming out in this one. It's still a sweeter malt, citrus, but that lemon isn't as big, if I remember correctly, as when it was a lot colder. This one is more sweet orange citrus. This, I wouldn't say a tang, but a tartness, like a lemon citrus tartness, is kind of what I get out of the smell of this. Where if I smell them side by side, this one does smell a lot sweeter. From the smell, I would think this one was lower ABV just because of that sweetness. Just saying. That because this one doesn't have as much sweetness, this was the higher ABV because we did drag out more of the sugars and it looks thinner because it's clear. That's the only reason I'm saying it's thinner. This looks like a thicker beer. This looks like a thinner beer just by the see-through of it. Winner, I would have to go again with beer number 2. That I really don't like that tart lemon citrus in my IPAs, and this one has a little too much of it. Let's go ahead and taste. Tastes like a good summer drinking beer. The malt level has come up, toasted malt has come up a little bit more since I did the review, but you still get that lemon bitterness tart. I wouldn't say tart. It's more like a lemon bitterness in there than anything. I don't know why I want to say tart. I don't know if it's that toasted malt, lemon, citrus bitterness is just screwing with my palate, so I want to say tart, but it's not tart. But I think as a summer beer, that malt would keep coming out more and more, and I wouldn't like it as much. But for the most part, it's the body seems like it's thinner now. Eh, it's it's probably a little bit less than medium. So I don't know if that's just the warming up or if it's the malt coming out in it. Let's taste this one. Yeah, that one's more of a sweet orange citrus with a touch of malt in it when you're drinking them side by side. I don't think I picked that up as much when I did the review for each. Yes, they were a little colder, but this one really has that orange sweet citrus in there. But they both have that same malt taste, which they should. They're using the same malt. Yeah, it's almost like the flesh of an orange is what you get out of this. I wouldn't never do it, and I've never done it, but it's almost like if you took the meat from an orange and took a big piece of it and added just a small piece of bread, so you get some of that breadiness or toast. Like maybe if you overloaded some orange jam on a small piece of toast, that's what you get. The sweetness isn't that big, but that's what it reminds me of. But on this, I would definitely have to go with beer number two. I think in both cases, I think that Citra's drowned it out by the Amarillo. On here, the Citra was 13.7 alpha acids, and the Amarillo was 9.2. But in both cases, unless it's the bitterness that's coming from that Citra, maybe that's what it is. I usually don't get that bitterness out of Citra, but it could be. So I think I need to experiment some more with that to see what it brings. But yeah, that Amarillo really does well, at least in this. There's not a lot of different malts in there, so we'll add some more malts and see if it can still stay up. But at least in my eyes, I think that Amarillo has drowned it out, that Citra. But yeah, let me know what you think. If you enjoyed this video, check some more out over here. And until next time, happy brewing.